You have all heard the statistics about 20% of businesses failing in the first 2 years, 45% failing in the first 5 years, 65% failing in the first 10 years, and only 25% being around after 15 years. You've all heard those statistics. And what we suggest is that that does not have to be that way, that you can beat those odds. You can take the mystery out of business success and ensure your business, not only your business's success, but its profitability as well. And so that's what this video is about. We're going to get into the 9 principles of business profitability and success. And we invite you to stay tuned and stick with us. And if you listen all the way through to the end, there's going to be a special gift for you for having done so. But let's get started. Hey, entrepreneurs. My name is Omari Kamal. I am the managing director of Community Capital Tax and Accounting. And we are accountants, but we're also small business profit and growth experts. And what that means is that our entire focus is on ensuring that your small business is profitable, that you are cash flowing, that you're decreasing your taxes, and ultimately that you are having your business work as hard for you as you're working for it. And what that means is that your business is producing wealth for you and creating financial freedom for you. And that's what our work and that's what our channel is all about. So if you would just go ahead and click the subscribe button, also click that bell notification so that you can be the first to know when we release new content. So with that said, how do you eliminate the mystery of small business success and ensure your profitability? So let me just tell you a little about my background. So I didn't start right out of college as an accountant. I started as a financial advisor, and I was an investment advisor specifically. So nowadays, when you say financial advisor, that means a lot of different things. But back in those days, in the late '90s, early 2000s, we were strictly investment folks. In fact, we weren't even called financial advisors; we were called investment registered reps, and then which later became investment advisors, which later became financial advisors when they started to allow us to offer insurance products, et cetera. So with that said, I had a challenge in being a quote unquote financial advisor because I always wanted to know more. Every time I would meet with new clients, I always wanted to know more about how to help my clients. They would tell us things like, "Oh, you can't offer tax advice." I'm like, "Why not? We're offering these tax advantage products, so to speak. Like, why can't we talk to them about taxes?" So I went and I took a tax class and I learned how to do taxes. And then you heard me say that I started in the early 2000s. So you know the market went through a bunch of different changes. 9/11, the first sort of bubble bursting moment. Prior to that, in 2000, and then we reached this kind of point of stagnation right around 2004, 2005, which ultimately led to the market crashing in 2008. But prior to that happening, I ended up leaving the investment world. There just wasn't a lot of opportunity there for me. And again, I wanted to know more. I wanted to explore more in the financial world. So I moved from investment advice to accounting, and I went to work for this small public accounting firm, and that was great. And but what was great about it though was that I started to close the gap. I started to close the gap, at least in terms of how I conceptualized the services that I was offering my clients. For how do small business owners move from just getting started, just being excited about their businesses, just starting to make money and support themselves, to the point where these large Fortune 100, 500, Fortune 50 companies that I was talking to my clients about when I was an investment advisor, how do they move over to that level? And when I first got started as an accountant, I actually took a course prior to working for this CPA firm that I was telling you about. And the course is called Universal Accounting, and it's out of that Universal Accounting course was this book, In the Black: 9 Principles to Become Profitable. And let me tell you, this book is phenomenal. If you're a small business owner, if you're a small business accountant, I invite you to read this book. I don't think you can listen to it. It's not on an Audible book, so you'll have to read it. And if you listen through the end of this video, I have a special gift for you about this book. But in any case, I read this book. It was an absolutely phenomenal book. And in this video, I'm going to take you through actually this video, and I'm going to do 1 or 2 more videos on some of the finer principles of the book and walk you through how to use them, how to have them show up in your business in a real way. So, with that said, before we get into the principles, I want to talk to you about what 9 principles and the author Alan Bostrom gets into with respect to what he calls the universal business model. So, what he suggests is that there are 3 aspects, 3 functions of any business. I don't care what the business is. You could be a retail business, you could be a services business, you could be a manufacturing operation. It doesn't matter what you do. There are three, and only 3 aspects to any given business. So the first aspect is getting the business, he would say. The second aspect is doing the business, and third aspect is running the business. So getting the business is your sales and marketing. Doing the business is your production operations, and running the business is your accounting and finance. And there's this graphic here that shows you an image of what he means there. And if you look at those 3 concentric circles, you see the point in the middle. You see what that is? That's a representation of profit. Now, in our videos to come, we're going to get way more into this concept of profit. I want you to take the case right off the bat that profit isn't what you think it is. Most of you are exploring profit like it's an accident. It is no accident. It is a habit, and it is a reflection of you following some core principles in your business that absolutely need to be adhered to if you're going to ensure your success. So now, with that said, before we get into that principles, though, I'm going to talk you through this universal business model because there's something profound to see here. Now, when I show this to my prospective clients a lot, they kind of have this aha moment, like, yeah, okay, there's getting the business, there's sales and marketing, there's doing the business, there's production operations, and what most small business owners do in those first 2 years, 5 years, 10 years of operation is that they very frantically and frenetically go back and forth between getting the business, doing the business, getting the business, doing the business, getting the business, sales and marketing, production operations, sales and operations. Because what happens is generally when people start businesses, they're very good at the doing the business part. Like, I'm a great chef, I'm a great cook, so I should open a restaurant, right? No. Running a restaurant is a completely different skill set than cooking. Okay, it is. If you know how to fix things, and you're a great carpenter, knowing how to do that type of work is very different than running a contracting operation. Okay, it's very different. It's not that you can't do it. I'm just saying it's different, and you need to appreciate what those differences are and all the skills and, again, principles that go into the process of running a business, because there are principles in business, but there are principles in they're in cooking, and principles in carpentry work, right? And just like those 2 things have their own sets of rules, business has its own sets of rules as well. So what happens is that people go back and forth between doing the business and getting the business. Doing the business. If you've been in business for longer than a couple of years, you're okay. Generally, I find at getting the business, but you're much better, I find, generally at the doing the business part. So you go back and forth. And generally when people come to me is when they're either A, burned out, because they've just been going back and forth, back and forth, and they don't understand how they traded one job in for 10 jobs. Because when you start a small business, you take on everybody's job, at least initially, you do. And so they're either burned out, they've run out of money. They're like, look, I know I'm making money, but I don't know where it's going. Help me figure out where it's going. Or 3, the IRS is knocking at the door, and they need some help working through that, or some combination of those 3 things. Okay, and that's when we begin to talk about running the business, because, like I said, very good at doing the business generally, kind of okay at getting the business, the sales and marketing aspect of things, but absolutely deplorable at the third thing, which is running the business, the accounting and finance portion of those things. But when you have those 3 things working together, because the running the business part, the accounting and finance, is critical, because as your company, as your business begins, as your organization begins to grow, the numbers, the accounting and finance piece will let the sales and marketing folk know how well the production operations people are doing. And they'll let the production operations people know how well the sales and marketing people are doing. And when those 3 elements start to work together, you start to see this phenomenon. Those 3 circles move closer and closer together. Now, mind you, again, as your organization grows, sales and marketing people don't think like production operations people. Production operations people don't think like accounting and finance people do. So they'll never be completely all on top of each other. But it's completely possible to optimize it to where they're operating in such a state of synergy that profit, you see that point in the middle, that one is also optimized as well. And that's a visual representation of where you want to get your business to, that those areas of your business are working as well together as they possibly could. Now, the question often comes up, well, how do you do that? How do you get to that place? Well, there's a couple of ways, and we'll talk a little bit. Mention them specifically in at least one of the principles. But generally speaking, how that happens is that you start to create systems in each area. Each one of these areas has systems associated with it. One of the quotes that I often, and we'll do a video on this later too, it's from Michael Gerber's The E-Myth. So great businesses aren't run by great people. And this is a common mistake that most businesses that fail make. Great businesses are not run by great people. Great businesses are run by great systems. It's not that you can't have great people. You certainly can, but you need to make sure that they're actually running by great systems. So each one of these areas, sales and marketing, production and operations, finance and accounting, all have systems to them. And in order to create a business that has systems, you have to develop an appreciation for measures. You have to learn, you have to really develop appreciation for measuring things. How do things work together inside of your business? What is the algorithm of your business? And where that generally will start is with a solid finance and accounting system, because what are you going to measure first in your business? You're going to measure the money. You're going to measure the cash flow. You're going to measure how things are coming into and out of your business. You start there. Once you start there and you really get into it, then you're going to start to appreciate how other things and other key performance indicators are connected. But it all starts with a solid finance and accounting system, and that's how we begin to push those circles together. But what are the system? What are the principles have to do with this? So I'm already starting to kind of get into one of the principles already, and I'll touch on this in just a bit. But generally speaking, here's why principles are so important and why it's so important to appreciate principles. The circumstances on a day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year basis are going to change. The circumstances from one business to another. What I would suggest to that carpenter is going to be very different than what I might suggest to that restaurant or any number of other businesses that we might work with or that you might be or you might have. But the principles never change. The principles never change, and what the principles will do is direct us and guide us to what the actions that there are to take. I mean, in life there are just things that are true. Water is wet, rocks are hard, and there are all kinds of truths that exist in life that if you attune yourself to the truths themselves, you'll always get the answer. You'll always find out what the next step is for you and your business. And so often we focus so much on what the ultimate answer is, what the ultimate solution is. And what I would suggest to you is don't worry so much about what the ultimate answer is, but figure out what the next step is. And if you follow a principles based approach, you'll always see what the next step will be. And if you continue to put one step in front of the other, I promise you, you'll get to your destination and get the information that you need. So here are the 9 principles. So the first set of principles have to do with marketing. You see, great customers don't just appear, they're made. What does that mean? Well, let's get into the 3 principles and we'll talk about what it means. First and foremost, nothing happens until you make a sale. This is a big deal. This is principle number 1. It's a big deal. Nothing happens until you make a sale. Again, I don't care what business you're in. You have to know how to sell. You have to go out and get a client or a customer. And this is what we mean by they don't disappear, they're made. You there's another brilliant book that we'll do a review on. It's called Duct Tape Marketing by John Jantz. And he does a lot of great work for helping you to really see the process for going through um, uh, identifying who your ideal customer, your ideal client is, and likewise, where they go, where they hang out, what kind of periodicals they read, so on and so forth. And once you get crystal clear about that, you'll activate this thing, this reticular activating network thing, and you'll start to see them everywhere. But you just don't go out randomly saying, "Hey, you want to do business with me? You want to do business with me?" No, you have to get clear about who they are first, and then prepare your strategy to find them. And if you do that, you'll find them each and every case. So nothing, but with that said, even once you put that framework to happen, you still got to go out there and do it. You got to go out and implement that sales and marketing plan. But nothing happens until you make a plan. You don't have a business until you sold something. You just have a good idea. Okay, that's principle number 1. Principle number 2, a deal is only a good deal unless it's good for both parties. Now, what after you've made your sales, the question is, what is the value of that thing to the person that or the company that you've sold it to? So, and can you want to continue to examine that? Like, is this a good deal? Is the value present? Because people don't buy things; they'll continue to buy things unless they see the value. And you always want to be aware of what that value is to your customer, and that you aren't underpricing or even overpricing. You want to find that sweet spot, and that's an ongoing assessment that you have to engage in. But if you ask yourself the question, is this a good deal for me? Is it a good deal for them? Is it a good deal for me? It's an ongoing question. It's something you're always in the inquiry for. You'll grow. You'll grow your business. And then principle number 3 is grow your business geometrically. There is a point at which the product is no longer the primary product in your business, that you've hit a steady state in your operation. And now the product is actually the business itself. You figured it out. You cracked the code. Think about Starbucks. Think about McDonald's. Think about Target. You can come up with a lot of different examples. They've very clearly identified their market, identified who they're after, figured out how to speak to them and appeal to them and to keep them satisfied and happy over time. And now it's just a matter of how many of these things can we create. And by things, I mean businesses. How many of these stores can create? And what's your version of that? And what does it look like to grow geometrically? And the time to start thinking about that is always, okay, these principles aren't just, okay, now we think about this. And there are moments where we'll ask ourselves, okay, which principle is most appropriate with this challenge or this issue that we're having? But generally speaking, you're always asking yourselves these questions in terms of how to move forward. In our next video, we're going to get into that, like how do we go about using these principles and having them show up in the way of actual actions as we go. Okay, so the next set of principles, the next 3 principles, are in the world of production. Become the expert on what happens inside of your business. This is the doing the business part. But what do you need to do to become the expert inside your own business? Well, principle number 1, pour on the communication. In the initial stages, the mantra has to be communicate, 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 over communicate with people, have your people over communicate with you. There's never ever anything to be assumed. There's never ever anything to be wondered about. Over communicate. I know a lot of you, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I hate meetings. Love meetings, especially in the early stages. You cannot meet enough. Now, of course, you want to make sure those meetings are always accompanied with action. Okay, so the meeting wants to be about the action, what actions to take, what actions we're already taking, but make sure your team and you are always in communication. Once you've done that, principle number 5 is improve your internal processes. I mentioned this before. Okay, remember, great businesses are not run by great people. They're run by great processes. They're run by great systems. So as you're communicating, one of the points of that communication is like, how do we systematize this? How do we systemize this particular effort, this particular function, this particular critical thing that needs to always get done in this way? And you want to improve those processes, create those processes, and ensure that your business, piece by piece by piece, is becoming a systems run business. Principle number 6 is take what you have and make it better. Good enough is never good enough. Always be in an inquiry with you or in your team for how do we make this better? Even if it's good, how do we make it better? I'm not saying, over experiment with what works. Okay, if it works, appreciate that it works. But that the thing about if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing, that's not necessarily true all the time. You can always make things better. And if you're communicating with your team, again, you're not putting one principle down to take another. But if you're always communicating with each other, you'll find that sweet spot between experimenting with things and at the same time not overhauling your operation to where you're causing more problems than what you need to. Okay, so those are your 3 principles inside of production. Okay, and the last set of principles are in the world of accounting. And I don't mean last like you deal with them last. I just mean they're just the last in the order that we're presenting them here. But these principles are in no particular order. They're really about what is going to most work for you or what's most necessary or in your face right now. So in the world of accounting, in the world of being in the black, as we say, it's all about profit. I want you to consider that being profitable is your guiding star. And as you hang out with me in the coming videos, and certainly if we talk one to one, you'll hear me see a lot about profit and why it's such a significant indicator of whether or not our business is working. So principle number 7 is, so you've heard it said in real estate before. Hey, uh, uh, real estate, it's all about three things. What do they say? Location, location, location. But in business, it's three things similarly: cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. There aren't a lot of issues in business that more cash flow can't handle. And so I would suggest to you that that's a critical foundational principle in the world of accounting. If with your accountant, that's something you always want to be attuned to. The fancy reports are fine. They're needed in a lot of different respects, but ultimately, you want to understand how your cash is flowing, and ultimately why that matters in the context of the rest of your business. Principle number 8: know your business. Okay, I'll talk about this in more videos, but every business goes through a variety of different spaces with respect to data. Okay, it all starts with data. You want to make sure that your data is organized and is presentable in a way that is understandable. But once you've trafficked in data long enough and it's organized in a proper and appropriate way, you're going to start to be informed. You're going to gain insights and information about your business that wasn't previously available to you when you were just kind of shooting from the hip. And once you've trafficked in information long enough, you'll then develop knowledge. You'll begin to know your business. And that's a different space than just merely having information or data. That's the point where you really know what works and you begin to understand how this element affects the other element. If this thing doesn't happen, how it sends a ripple effect throughout the course of your business. And that's a profound space. And that's when you really start to have a business as opposed to just being self employed and having the business be overly reliant upon you. And once you've hung out in the space of knowledge for long enough, you start to get to this space of wisdom. And what we suggest and what we profess is that all of our business owners, all of our entrepreneurs that we work with want to be in the wisdom space, whether they realize it or not, because this is the part where we sort of transform from business owners to being real investors and real mavens in our business. And certainly our business will be successful, but truth is, every business that we touch and become a part of will become successful as well. And that's something we'll get into in a later video as well: how to transition from employee to uh, 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 self-employed to business owner to investor. That's a nod from Rich Dad Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant, if you're familiar with that. But know your business. It all starts with knowing your business. All right. Principle number 9. This is the last principle. Plan for tomorrow. You've heard me say before, look, we want your business to work as hard for you as you work for it. There was a profound a moment I had when I was an investment advisor and a small business owner client. I loved working with small business owner clients when I was an investment advisor because they always seemed to be the sharpest tools in the shed, and they understood what the concept that we were attempting to explain to them. And this one business owner, he asked me this question. He asked me, he said, how can I have someone do for me what you're doing for these other companies? I said to him, how do you mean? What are you talking about? He says, uh, you're telling me how to put a financial plan together, right? And I'm like, yeah. And it says, and you want me to invest in all these companies, right? GM, Motorola, IBM, Microsoft, Facebook, all that, right? And I said, I guess in a manner of speaking, yeah. He says, well, here's the thing. I run a business. I consider myself to be my own best investment. So how can I get someone like you to go raise money for me? Because you're raising money for all these other companies. Don't get me wrong. I want to do what you're telling me to do, but I want to invest in myself as well. How do I do that? And at the time, everybody, I didn't have a good answer for him. And that's really, I thank that guy. I wish I could find him. But I thank that guy tremendously because that question said about the entire rest of my career. And I began to search for how do I train entrepreneurs to train others to help them to look at their businesses in the same way that they would any other stock, bond, mutual fund, annuity, whatever it is that they were looking to invest in, because your business is as much a part of your long-term personal financial plan as any other investment that you make. And really, your accountant and any other financial advisor that you work with should be helping you to look at your business and structure your business in that way. And that's what a very, very large part of our practice is all about: planning for tomorrow. We want you to understand not only what your number is, that financial freedom number is, but specifically how you need to grow your business and what it takes to grow your business in order for you to hit that number on time or early. But again, planning for tomorrow is a principle that you need to engage in, and everything should tie back to what is this business doing for you the business owner, the entrepreneur. Because look, I know many of you love your businesses, but I know many of you love your lives as well. And that the business is a way for you to connect the dots and to be more in life than you might have been in the process of building your business. So now, if you like to read in the black, and I really would recommend that you do so, just click the link in the description and it'll take you to a site page where you'll be able to get your own PDF copy of the book. So also, if you'd like to meet with us and have a conversation about how the 9 principles could make a difference in your business, feel free. There'll be another link in the chat. You'll be able to schedule a time to meet with us, and we'd love to have that conversation with you. Okay, so we'll see you in our next video. In the next video in this series, we're going to talk about how to actually implement these 9 principles in your business and how to use what we call the business improvement process in order to take these principles, translate them into action, and then to create an accountability structure for yourself to move yourself up that wisdom pyramid that we were talking about a moment ago. But in between now and then, and the time we actually talk, we wish you all the best of success in business and in life, and be well.